Welcome to the channel, guys. We are back again, and today we're going to be talking about the new 2020 release, Dolce & Gabbana, the One EDP Intense, so stay tuned for that. And if you like the content, guys, hit that like and subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. Now, I am a huge fan of the One EDP. It's probably one of my favorite fragrances of all time, definitely one of my favorite designers, and it is a classic scent that to this day I think is still really amazing. Of course, there's been a number of flankers and none of them seem to really live up to the expectation that the One EDP has set, but they did release a new EDP Intense and I've been very excited to try this one out, so I'm going to talk about that today. Now, I will say that I tested this one out several times on test strip first because I wanted to get a little bit more of an impartial judgment of the fragrance, just because skin chemistry plays a huge role in what's happening with the way you smell a fragrance. And on test strip, I actually have to say I really did not enjoy this one. I found it to be overly sweet. I didn't get much of the spices, and it was even a little bit cloying. And oddly enough, the sweetness reminded me a little bit of 1 Million Lucky, which I do actually enjoy, but it was a little overwhelming. Now, I did decide to try this one on skin to really get the feel for it, and I am at least happy that it's much better on skin. And in fact, I find the opening is really enjoyable. So I do get a burst of a little bit of an unusual freshness. This happens both on test strip as well as on skin. And it's weird because it's a little bit spicy and overly fresh. So it's a little bit of a strange composition, but that really does only last for really the initial burst. And then this one quickly settles into a very cardamom heavy opening. And I have to say it's done extremely well. I really enjoy the cardamom in this fragrance. And in fact, if you're looking for something that has a really great representation of a nice, spicy, aromatic cardamom, I would actually suggest this fragrance because it's very well done. This opening phase does last for quite a while on my skin. I get probably about 2 hours where cardamom is the dominant note. It is very in your face, and it isn't overly spicy like a lot of black pepper fragrances, so it does have a nice spice. It's definitely there, but there's definitely an aromatic kind of feel to it. A little light freshness, but not overly done, and a very light sweetness, but the opening is cardamom. Over the course of the 2 hours, that does definitely start to tone down, and after about the 2 hour mark, I can't really pick up much of the spice anymore, and this becomes a little bit sweeter. I do find the dry down here to be a little bit more generic and not as enjoyable as the really nice cardamom opening, so it was a little bit disappointing in that respect. And I would say that ultimately, once this one dries down, it is definitely a skin scent. So it does actually last a very long time on my skin, but it's a skin scent. I get about 2 hours of projection. It's actually quite nice, but as that cardamom dies down and as that projection pulls in, this becomes a lot more of a skin scent. I did put this on a couple times and I woke up the next morning and could still smell it on me. Very faintly, but it was there, and it did have a very nice, sweet, almost chocolatey vibe in that dry down, that deep dry down. It was a definitely familiar scent profile, and it is nice and enjoyable, and I would say that the longevity is pretty good here. But again, this is one of those ones that after, for me, the 4 hour mark, it's very faint. It's present on the skin. You can pick it up. Anyone who's really close to you will probably smell it. But it's one of those ones that it's very close to the skin and very faint. So it's not a very strong fragrance. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think the first 2 hours are really amazing for this fragrance. Once it does die down into the dry down, it becomes a lot more of a sort of sweet, a little bit more generic fragrance. And I will say that throughout this fragrance, I don't get a lot of the leather. There's hints of it, really, but I would have liked probably a more heavy leather with this continuation of the spices throughout the life of the fragrance. That would have been amazing, but I felt a little let down in the dry down. Altogether, this is not a bad fragrance, and actually I've seen this one on discounters already, so I feel like this is one you can get in a good, for a good price point. Ultimately, this is one I also find hard to compare to the One EDP because it is such a radically different scent profile. To me, they're very, very different fragrances, and if you go into this one thinking about a more intense version of the One EDP, you are definitely going to be disappointed because this smells really nothing like the original at all. So it is a completely different fragrance, and I know there's a lot of flankers that do that kind of thing. The DNA there is basically not even detectable for me. There is a similar sort of cozy, seductive vibe that they both have, especially in that opening. The opening of both of them are very nice, very seductive, but they smell very different. So on that regards, I could also see owning both of them because they definitely may do a similar thing or suit a similar occasion, but they are different fragrances entirely. Ultimately, I would say you got to get your nose on this one, check it out, see if you like it, but do not expect a better performing the One EDP because that is not what you're going to get with this fragrance. You might find yourself pleasantly surprised, and if I liked the dry down more, I probably would definitely pick up a bottle of this, but I also see this one hitting discounters, as I said, pretty quickly. It's already been on discounters that I've seen. I forget where it was, Fragrance X or something like that. So you can definitely get this one at a better price point, and it might even be worth it at that price point. But again, that's always going to be a choice that you have to make. Anyways, guys, that's it for this one. Not completely disappointed. I actually do kind of like this fragrance. It has some very strong points, but if I had to pick between the two, I would probably pick the One EDP. Anyways, guys, were you looking forward to this one? What is your biggest designer release 2020 that you're looking forward to? Leave a comment down below, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.